Welcome to the VBAC Home Birth Stories podcast. I'm your host, Ashley Winning, founder of the Motherhood Circle and creator of the Journey into Motherhood program. I'm a mother of two and have had two unplanned and unneeded C-sections and am planning my first home and vaginal birth. My own journey has sparked a deep passion to support women to find their own voice and strength to create the pregnancy, birth and motherhood experience you desire. This podcast is for women wanting to learn more about VBACs, especially home births, and for professionals who want to learn more about how to support VBAC home birthing women. Inside, we're going to share women's stories from surgical birth to achieving their vaginal home birth after cesarean. Now let's get started. Hey, me again. I just wanted to let you know that I've just created a brand new Facebook group called VBAC Home Birth Support Group, where you can connect with other like-minded mothers who are looking to have a VBAC home birth as well. You can find the link in the show notes, and I look forward to seeing you there. Hi, Emma. Thank you so much for coming on the podcast. I'm really excited that you're here to share your story. So please introduce yourself to the audience.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm Emma. I live in the Sunshine Coast at the moment, but we've traveled around a lot. So my birth story is from a few different places. I have two children. James is almost 5 and Elodie is 18 months old.
Awesome. So you're not too far from me either, because no. I'm North Gold Coast.
Okay.
Yeah, so not too far. I mean, it's a few hours drive, but yeah, not too far. So it's always nice. We're kind of localish.
Yeah, that's right. Absolutely.
So please start off with sharing your pregnancy and your first pregnancy and your birthing story.
Yep. So I was pregnant with and had James in the UK. It was a pretty straightforward pregnancy until about 40 weeks when I got a pup's rash, but that was the only thing that happened there. And yeah, in the UK, it's all midwife-led care, community midwives, unless there's any issues, and then you see a doctor. So yeah, they classed me as a high BMI, but said if I wanted to, I could still birth at home or the birth centre or the hospital. It was up to me. I chose our local birthing centre. I was in between two, and I chose one not attached to the hospital. I chose not to birth at home because we lived in a small apartment and sort of had my family coming to visit from Australia, coming and going. So yeah, I just thought, yeah, we'll meet in the middle and go to the birth centre.
And the birth centres are pretty nice and homely, aren't they?
Oh, they're amazing. They're massive bathtubs, the silks, I guess you like the silk sort of things hanging from the ceilings for support that you can pull on, and balls and mats, and yeah, they're just beautiful.
This is what I think every birthing room should have, regardless of where you're birthing. This should be, a bare minimum. Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
There's so many, they really encourage active birth.
Oh, that's good.
Which, yeah, is just amazing. So it was all, just sort of going along, and then I got to about 41 weeks, and they said that they would offer an induction at 41 plus 5. And if things all went ahead, I could still birth at the birth centre. They then said that if I did have the induction, they would prefer me to be at the birth centre at the hospital, but I could still choose the other one if I wanted to. So, sort of leading up to birth, they were very much about choice, and very great with that. I got to 41 plus 5, and the way it works over there, they do pessaries for induction. So I went in and had my first pessary, and then I could go home.
What's a pessary? Is that like a capsule that they put in?
So the first two that I had were kind of like a tampon. They're on a bit of string, and they slowly release the hormone, or the artificial hormone. So I had the first 24-hour one and I could go home for 24 hours. So I went home and I was on the ball and walking the stairs, and yeah, nothing really happened. So then I went in the next day and for the second pessary, and I didn't really realize that I would not be going home, that I would be staying in hospital, and I was feeling a bit emotional. So my husband went and spoke to the midwife for me, and she came and said I could go home if I wanted to. It was my choice. They recommended to stay. And yeah, it was just more for me that I didn't realize that was what was happening really. But I decided to stay. So yeah, that night, while I was in hospital as well, I could walk the stairs. I had a room to myself. I could walk the stairs, be on the ball. Just sort of keep moving and keep active. They had a bed with different positions and that, but I didn't need that yet. So another 24 hours and nothing really happened. So that was on 42 weeks, that was the Friday, they came in to give me a 12-hour pessary, which was a capsule. It was dissolvable. So I had that one and had a few niggles that night, but nothing too intense, and it all sort of fizzled out before the next day. So the next day, the doctor was due to come in and speak about breaking my waters and starting the drip, and we sort of waited all morning. Then at lunchtime, my husband Craig and my mum went to get some lunch downstairs, and I was just waiting still for the doctor who came in while they were downstairs. And he said to me that he would do an exam and see whether they could break my waters. And he said it in those words, so I just thought that they would assess and let me know, and we would talk about it, and then come to a decision. However, he meant he would break my waters then. So he did the exam, broke my waters, and I was sort of left there without my mum and husband, my support people. But when they broke my waters, they also put a fetal scalp monitor on James's head, and his heart rate was low, and they thought that they had just not attached it quite right, so they reattached it, but it was still low, so they asked me to turn over onto my left side. So yeah, then things all recovered okay, and they said they would sort of come back in about 2 hours and see how I was going and talk about the drip.
That was a bit of a different experience to the midwives who were kind of working with you and asking what you wanted and giving you choice, versus the obstetric team who came in, or this particular OB who came in and kind of decided this was happening and didn't ask for consent for some of the things.
Yeah, absolutely. It definitely put me out a little bit. I felt a bit shocked, and I wasn't quite prepared for that after such a positive experience so far. And I was absolutely feeling like I had done hypnobirthing. I'm quite passionate about birth. I've always been interested in it. It's definitely a passion mentions, and I felt very out of control, like not in control, which I guess it sort of always is a little bit, but you can never be fully in control. But it's just it wasn't what I expected, and I wasn't how I expected to be. But they said 2 hours, and then it was 3 before they came to get me, but nothing had really started. Just a few niggles, but not full labour by any means. So they took me over to the labour room, and they started the drip quite low, and yeah, I was feeling very emotional, thinking that I would have to be sitting on the bed and I couldn't move around. I really wanted an active labour. I had a really great midwife at that point who said, no, you can be on the ball. We'll put the ball next to the bed. You can move into a position that's comfortable for you. So that was really positive. However, she changed shifts after about 2 hours. So I think that was about 4 p.m. that I moved over to that room from memory. And then, yeah, after about 2 hours, I had a change of midwife, and she did an exam, and I was about 2 centimeters. So after about 3 days of induction pessaries and breaking my waters and probably an hour of being on the drip, I was still at 2 centimeters. And she said,
how long had it been since your waters were broken at this point, roughly?
About 3 or 4 hours.
Okay, so 3 or 4 hours for the waters broken, and then an hour since they started the drip.
Yes,
okay.
That's right. So the midwife said to me that she felt that the baby, or James, was posterior, and I was feeling everything a lot in my back, and yeah, the contractions on the drip, even low, were really intense for me. So over the space, things sort of just kept going as they were. The really intense induction back labour, and he had a few heart rate drops where they asked me to go onto my left side, and it was all going very slowly in my eyes. So I asked for an epidural because it was just tough and I was exhausted. During one of the heart rate drops that James had, I was cuddling with my mum, and I just said, I feel like I need a C-section. I just want to go and have it. It's too much. And she said, it's okay, it's all right, and it was sort of reassuring me. And then when they were doing the epidural, he had another heart rate drop, and they started to talk themselves about a C-section, which I think in my body I just knew was going to happen. So they got the paperwork sorted. I didn't end up having the epidural because he'd had the heart rate drop. So paperwork was all sorted, and they took me down. This would have been about 11:30 that he had that heart rate drop, and it was about 1:45 when I was lying. Yeah, probably it was 1:45 when I was lying on the bed anyway. I could see the clock lying in the operating theatre. And I said to them, oh, it's, 1:45 midnight, so I guess he's going to be born tomorrow. And they sort of said to me, we can get the babies out pretty quick and we'll see how that goes. And so he was born at 2 minutes to midnight that night. So yeah, it took a bit longer to stitch up. He was okay. His head, he was healthy and fine. His head was very cone shaped. He was, pretty stuck in that posterior position in my pelvis. It didn't take too long. It took a couple of days for his head to sort of get back to his normal shape. So they took me to recovery, and my mum and Craig were able to come there with me, and Craig's mum was actually able to come then as well, which was really nice. And he had his first feed. He just latched on, and he did really well with his first feed. They had put me on my side in recovery so that I could do sideline breastfeeding, and they were really supportive of that. Then they took me down to the ward, and I was there. So that was about midnight on the Saturday, and I was home about midday on the Monday. So they get you up pretty quickly the next morning. I was up having a shower, and they let you go home pretty quick, which was great. Yeah, the aftercare support in the UK was really, really good. I had a midwife for a week who would come to my home and check on us and make sure that breastfeeding was going well. And then when we were signed off from the midwifery care, I had a health visitor who is a nurse who comes along, and yeah, she was really supportive as well. And my mum had come over from Australia and had to leave about 2 weeks after James was born. And yeah, the health visitor rang to check on me to make sure I was doing okay with that, which was obviously really tough. But yeah, she checked on me and made sure it was all okay. I felt like I had a few issues with my scar and I couldn't get into the doctors, and I was feeling really defeated, and I rang my health visitor and she just supported me so well to get into the doctors and get dressings changed and help from the nurses. And I was really, really thankful for that.
Wow. So like a person like who supports you and emotionally supports you and kind of helps, you know, tee everything up for you.
Yeah, that's right. She, I don't know if I just got a really good one. You have a health visitor care until children go to school in the UK. So they come and do your child checks and as they're progressing, as they get older. But yeah, they're sort of as much as you need them. You know, if you need a bit more help and ask for it, they will come and they give you information about baby-led weaning and starting solids and childhood milestones and things like that. So it's really handy to have someone to come to your home for all of that.
Yeah, I think we've got similar here, but we call them health nurses, child health nurses. But I think you only get the support, it depends in Australia whereabouts you are, but I think you get the support for a week or two after you've had your baby, and then afterwards you need to go to the clinics. I think that's how it works here. So it would be cool to have someone come to your home. Yeah,
it's really good. And obviously, like, it depends who you get as well, because I had some friends with some not so great health visitors, but I had a really great one. And I moved areas, and so yeah, in a different NHS trust, and still had a really good one. So I was really thankful for that help along the way. Yeah, because I did feel a little bit deflated, I guess, about having the cesarean and the way that things went. And my health visitor my second health visitor that I had, she spoke to me about that and was really supportive, and got me a birth debrief with the consultant midwife of the area, which was just fantastic to be able to talk it through. She had all my birth notes and was speaking to me about that, and just said it wasn't anything you did, and it wasn't you as, you know, like it wasn't me. It was just that the induction didn't work. It didn't happen. It wasn't my body. It wasn't anything like that. It was the induction itself, which for me, that really helped me to not see that it was my choices necessarily. It was just the induction. It didn't work out for me.
That's so amazing to hear that, like to have a healthcare professional actually say, look, this is the induction and this is what happens sometimes with induction, because quite often the woman is blamed, or, you know, they skirt around the fact that, you know, it's the intervention. Yeah. And so many first-time mums have failed inductions, and it's not a failure of their body, it's a failure of the intervention. And unfortunately, from my experience, it isn't something that's often explained at the beginning or before the process of induction, which would be kind of helpful. I mean, I personally, when I went in for mine, I didn't even know that they could fail. I thought I was literally going in there and that day my baby was going to shoot out because
absolutely.
There was no discussion about risk or, you know, the fact that it could fail, or the fact that they knew that it was probably going to fail. So it's so good to hear that. It made me feel really happy that you got that, you know, support afterwards.
Absolutely. I thought it was really great, because I didn't even know it was an option to have that sort of debrief with someone who was in my area, who has lots to do with birthing mothers in my area. And it was just really, really positive to have that meeting, and it was definitely the start for me for my healing. And she said to me, there's absolutely no reason why you shouldn't have a VBAC next time. And that, yeah, really kicked off my confidence. It was great. And then we moved to Australia not long after that. And so James was probably about 6 months old when I had that birth debrief, and we moved back to Australia when he was 1. So yeah, we moved around a little bit. We were living in Mudgee in New South Wales, and I fell pregnant with Elodie, and we found out 3 days after my husband was made redundant from his job. So we were facing moving from our small town to Perth, and I wasn't keen to leave Mudgee. I really loved it there. But when Craig said we're going to Perth, I said, can I have a home birth? Can we have a home birth midwife for our next baby? And he said, yep, we'll work that into the budget. So
Yay.
yeah, he was really supportive, and he comes from the UK where, I mean, home birth, it just happens all the time.
Yeah, and it's like NHS, it's free.
Yeah, absolutely.
I love that so much. I was born in the UK, so, and as a side note, I was born in the UK, but I've lived here my whole life, so I kind of feel a bit ripped off living here and hearing these stories. I'm like, damn.
Yeah, it's a bit of a difference.
Yeah.
So I asked I think I asked in the home birth Facebook group if anyone knew of midwives that do VBAC home birth in Perth, and someone recommended Narafia, and I called her and spoke to her, and we made plans to meet when we moved to Perth, but I was pretty much set on having Narafia as our midwife, which I did. She said, it's okay to call other midwives, and these are other ones who also do VBAC. And I said, nope, it's you. So we met up once I got to Perth and had our first appointment. And yeah, again, a pretty straightforward pregnancy. Nothing happened. Thankfully, did not have that itchy rash again. So yeah, that was really good. I went to the chiropractor from about 24 weeks, and I was changing. I had different posture, so I really didn't want a posterior baby again, and was sort of doing everything I could to avoid that. And in my mind, I went past my due date because I had a posterior baby. And I had been having, with Elodie's pregnancy, I had been having Braxton Hicks since quite early on. I'm pretty sure it was before 20 weeks. And I just thought, yep, this is great. I'm not going to go so over. And I got to 40 weeks, and I just started feeling a bit deflated that I was still pregnant, because I had tried so hard not to have a posterior baby and she wasn't. And why wasn't this happening? And I didn't want to have to get to 42 weeks and start going to the hospital and talking about what we were going to do, sort of thing. Like, that was my main reason that I didn't want to get to 42 weeks.
And had your midwife said to you at 42 weeks, that was kind of the limit or cut off, where you would then need to go to hospital care, or you'd need to start to see obstetricians or something like that?
Yeah, she said that, well, at 42 weeks, we had an appointment to go to see the obstetrician, but yeah, I didn't have to necessarily birth there, depending on how it all went and the talks and if I wanted to get checks and things like that. So I was 41 plus 3 when I decided to get acupuncture, just to really give it a go. And so that was the Monday. I went Monday afternoon. I went for the acupuncture, and I had for about a week been having niggles on and off, feeling a bit more than Braxton Hicks, but nothing. It always sort of fizzled out. So when I went for the acupuncture, I was getting those same sort of niggles. I was sitting in there feeling like things were getting started. And then, yeah, it all sort of fizzled out again. And the next day, I sort of had a cry to my husband that, you know, he was fly in, fly out, and I'd asked him to stay home since I think it was about 39 weeks. And so, yeah, he was home from work, and I was upset that it was taking up our postpartum time together, and I was just feeling quite emotional. And so I sort of let that all out to him. And then the next morning, so this was the Wednesday morning at 6 a.m., I woke up to feeling a bit wet, and I just felt so excited that my body was actually doing something. Because for me, I was confident that my body could birth. I was confident in VBAC. I knew the stats. I knew the risks of both VBAC and repeat cesarean, and I just was confident that my body could do it. But the one thing I was worried about was actually starting labor, going into labor.
I can relate to that so much as well. It's just like, you know, but you don't until it actually happens, and you're like, oh my God, my body's working. It's doing it. And then you're just like, this is the miracle.
Yeah, absolutely. So it was such a great feeling. I had an appointment with my midwife. She was coming around that morning. To have the appointment. And so I sent her a message, and she said, oh, great, I'll still come for the appointment. So yeah, I took James to kindy that day, and I was sort of like, oh yeah, you know, things will be going, and I sort of won't be there to pick him up, sort of thing. And it wasn't a lot of waters, it wasn't a big gush or anything like that, and then it didn't continue throughout the day. So I was doing some walking. When Narafia came for the appointment that day, we went for a walk, and my second midwife also came, and we just walked around the neighborhood to see if things could get going a little bit. And yeah, they didn't really. That night I had a pretty good night's sleep, and the next day I just was so keen to get things started before that 24-hour sort of that the hospital had suggested, 24 hours before they would have liked me to go in. And I was walking around. It was a bit rainy, and I just was walking around the neighborhood. I had my headphones in, and Narafia called me, and she said, what do you want to do? The hospital suggests to go in, and they would like to see you. And at that point, I just felt like I just sort of said, I just need a bit more time, like thinking that I had to go in and I had to go to the hospital, but I still wanted more time. And she just said, okay, that's fine. You can have, you know, like, we won't go today. And I was just, oh, okay. Like, I don't need to ask it. It is my decision. And I sort of felt this little boost of confidence there.
That's nice.
Yeah, it was really great. So they wanted me to go in for antibiotics because for IV antibiotics because of the time it had been since I'd had some water leakage. And Narafia said, I can do that for you at home, or you can say no, you don't want anything, or you can have oral antibiotics. And I was checking my temperature the whole time, and it was fine. And I said, I'm I'm happy to have oral antibiotics and just like make a little compromise. So she got that prescription for me, and I was taking those as needed. And then, yeah, I just was, again, just walking around, gutter walking, doing figure eights on the board, dancing, just trying to encourage things along a little bit. And they were slowly getting there, slowly working its way up. So that night, the Thursday night, things did start to get a little more. And around 11 o'clock, Craig and I were going to go for a walk around the neighbourhood, up the hills and things, just trying. And Narafia ended up coming, and Craig got some sleep, and Narafia and I walked. And every so often I would have to stop and just bend my legs a little bit, and Narafia was supporting me with her back. We were standing back to back every time a contraction would come. And yeah, she was physically supporting me as well as obviously emotionally. Yeah, so we were walking around, and yeah, things were getting pretty regular by the time that I got home. I was feeling, I also was using my baby wrap to do some of the spinning babies, abdominal lift and tuck, just to sort of help to get Elodie engaged. And yes, just different things, a little bit of rebozo and some like a side lying release that they recommend when things are a bit slow. So yeah, doing those things as well, just physically trying to help things as they could go. So by sort of midnight on the Friday, I was feeling pretty tired. Oh, I had tried to go into the birthing pool because it was feeling pretty intense, but I guess it was too soon. I was too relaxed in there, and things slowed down whenever I got in the pool. So I had to get back out again. And yeah, I lied on my side, which was the most comfortable, and just got a little bit of sleep in between contractions. That morning, James was due to go to kindy, so my husband took him, and in my mind, I thought, yes, today is the day you're going to come home as the big brother. So he went off to kindy, and Narafia had called my second midwife, who actually couldn't be there for the full day. She had something that she had to be at. So she called her in the morning just to come for a bit more support, as well as a doula friend of hers. And they were all sort of there in the morning. I was standing out in the sunshine in my backyard. And for me, I think that's the time that thing is really properly kicked off, I guess.
Did you have your main midwife with you throughout that whole time, or was she kind of consulting away?
From 11 p.m. on the Thursday, she was there. So she slept on our couch and got a bit of rest as well throughout the night.
So that's nice. So you had that extra support, and then you called your doula, and then you had your second midwife come as well. Yeah, so the doula actually I hadn't planned on having a doula. Oh. It was a friend of Narafia's, and that worked out well. Yeah, it did. It worked out really well. So I met her on that day, and she was absolutely lovely and so helpful. So yeah, it was nice that we all sort of connected, which we did sort of in my backyard in the sunshine. Really nice moment, just having sort of women around me, and it was very lovely. So then I was doing the abdominal lift and tuck and some rebozo and the side lying release. And then I got in the shower, and I pretty much stayed there the rest of the day, just sort of humming and doing my hypnobirthing. And during the night as well, I'd asked for a vaginal exam, and I was
2 centimeters, which I'm sure not that many people get super happy about, but I was, because that's sort of all I had gotten to with James, and I was there without any help, any medical help, I guess.
Any interventions?
And, I was just super happy, super proud that I had gotten there, and I was doing it.
Did you have like positive mantras going through your head, like encouraging yourself, or like you're doing this or anything like that?
Yeah, so one for me was, you deserve this, like you deserve this beautiful birth that you have been working hard for, like you deserve it. And that's definitely where I got to, sort of in the shower, I was saying it to myself. And definitely you can do this, and it's happening. And I had positive birth affirmations around the birthing pool, and that I'd sort of made up for myself, that were things that really spoke to me about how I was, how I thought I would be sort of going on, and what would help me during labor. And like pictures that just made me feel good. I had some really beautiful photos taken during my pregnancy, and so I had those up there because they just made me feel really nice. So I had the space sort of all set up, although I had imagined that it would be nighttime, so I had fairy lights and things, but as it turns out, I laboured mostly or all through the day. In the shower, and I'd asked for another exam, and I was 8 centimeters. I'm not quite sure what time that was, but nearing probably about 2 or 2:30.
I bet you were ecstatic.
Yeah, well, actually, I was nearing transition, and I was at the point where I just was starting to feel like I can't do this for much longer, and I thought I would be pushing by now, sort of thing. Narafia had also been on the phone to the hospital, because I was 42 weeks exactly, and I was meant to go in that morning for the appointment, and she had called and cancelled it, but the obstetrician was asking to speak to me, and she asked me if I wanted to do that. And
your labour, while you were labouring. Let me just make a coffee.
I said yes, that I would. As it turns out, I'd been getting pretty frustrated with being in the shower, so by the time he called, I was sitting on the toilet, just waiting, trying to get into a comfy position. And he called, and he was sort of saying, "Oh, you can come in with your team, like you can still have your midwife there and everything. We would like you to come in." And I had this quite long contraction on the phone to him, and while I was having that contraction, I passed the phone to my midwife. And then when I got back on the phone to him, he said, "But it's up to you and what you want to do." And maybe he heard where I was at, but I decided to stay home anyway. However, once I got back in the shower after that conversation, I said to my midwife, I want to go in. I need an epidural. It's taking too long. I can't do this any longer. And she had just sort of smiled at me and said, like, it's happening. We can't go anywhere. You're okay. It's safe. And she's going to be here really soon. And so it was just, I had swollen feet. I couldn't get the temperature right. I was just feeling a bit frustrated. We got a kitchen, and Craig and Mum were sort of filling the pool up and sort of getting it warm and everything. And I felt this feeling. And the only way I can explain it is, and it sounds awful, but that feeling that you get when you're vomiting, and you have that ejection. It's the fetal ejection reflex, but it's just that uncontrollable urge to get something out. And I had
that full on.
yeah, so I had one of those, and I was just, okay, that was something. And I was getting frustrated waiting for the pool to fill up, so I got back in the shower, which was probably not helpful for the pool filling up. But anyway, I wanted to be back in there. And I had another one with the next contraction. So I said, and she said, oh yeah, I thought I heard that sound, that sort of moan sound. So once the pool was filled up, I got in and had a few more of those fetal ejection reflexes with each contraction. And the pool was just amazing. It was just really eased things for me. I felt like I was sleeping in between contractions. They changed to be a bit more spaced out, I guess, so I just had a little bit more rest as my body was doing its thing. I didn't push at all. I felt like I didn't put physical strain or effort in, but my body obviously did. So yeah, it was almost 4 o'clock when my husband said, I have to go get James from kindy. And Narafia and I both sort of said to him, you can't go now. And he said, it's okay, I'll be back in time. It's only 20 minutes. It's fine. And so
20 minutes.
yeah. So he went. And yeah, I was in the pool. And he's just walked past me smiling. Yeah, it was probably 15 minutes later. I didn't really feel the ring of fire, as people say. I felt like almost bone movement. And yeah, her head was crowning, and she still had her bag of waters, really. So it definitely wasn't a full water leak that it wasn't my full waters that had happened 2 days before. Her bag of waters was still there, and it sort of burst, and in the water you could see it. And then she was born, her head and body all in one fetal ejection reflex.
Wow.
She just flew out, and I wasn't really expecting it to happen so quick, but I managed to catch her. And I had quite a short cord, so she was still in the water. It was but yeah, I could have her comfortably with her head out, but it wasn't like right up to me per se. Yeah, so that was just amazing, this amazing feeling. My mum actually got to video it all for Craig, which I love looking back on it. It's just crazy that what our bodies can do. And I cried. I couldn't believe that I'd done it. And she was born at home, and she was there, and it was just beautiful and hard. It was, yeah, I can't describe that feeling. I just sort of cried into her as I was, oh my goodness, you're here. So yeah, she was healthy and perfect, and she cried not long after she was born, and didn't stop for a little while. Then Craig and James came home, and I was still in the pool, so it wasn't that long after. Yeah, I was still in the pool, and it was just beautiful for James to come home and see his baby sister that he had been so excited about. And then he said,
your husband was probably shocked.
Yeah. I think he was expecting it a little bit. He said to me afterwards, he felt like he shouldn't have been there, like that it was sort of, yeah, it was a really nice women's sort of circle. I don't know. Yeah, he just sort of felt that feeling, which, yeah, it was funny for him to say that, and say that, yeah, he he felt it was okay that he wasn't there.
That's nice.
Yeah. So yeah, James met his sister, and then 2 minutes after he said, "I want to go watch TV." So
as they do.
like, can I go watch my show?
Oh goodness. How old was he?
He was 3.5.
Yeah. Typical 3-year-old.
Yeah. So yeah, I have that on video as well. Okay, can I go watch my show?
So cute.
Yeah, it's very funny. And then yeah, I think I'm having contractions again. And I just was kind of shocked about that. I didn't really think about, okay, now I have to birth this placenta. So yeah, it didn't feel like very long for me, but looking back on photos, it was probably about 45 minutes. But for me, it felt like I was only in there for 10 minutes after she was born. But I stood up to get out of the birth pool, and Narafia said, "I think the placenta is just there. Like, it's a very short cord, and just push and see if it will come out with the next contraction." And it did. So yeah, that was the first time that I actually pushed, I feel, to birth the placenta. So yeah, it came out and it was all fine. The placenta was all good, and yeah, we sat and just relaxed. Elodie had a little bit of a feed, not much though, which has been her sort of personality the whole time with breastfeeding. She just is quick and small amounts. So looking back, I'm not surprised. And then after the cord was all white, Craig cut the cord. We had a cord tie, tied the cord and cut the cord. And then I had a shower and hopped into bed, and Narafia checked me while I was in my bed. And she said that it looks like a 2 centimeter tear, so a second degree tear. So then I would have to go to hospital. So I had something to eat, and she had a little bit of a difficult time with the hospital on the phone for me to go in. So she sorted it all out for me, thankfully, and I went in and they checked and they said, "Oh, it's just a second degree tear." And then when they cleaned me up, they realized that it was actually a lot more, and it was a 3C tear. So I had to go into theatre to have that stitched up. And I was just so exhausted that even before I went in, I was falling asleep as the doctor was trying to talk to me, and I was just so tired. So my husband was there with Elodie, and she was very content with him. And so I just slept through the whole surgery. I was just exhausted, and then went into recovery, and it was all fine. The healing from that was not a problem. It was all very straightforward for me. I didn't have any issues with it. So
that's good that you didn't have any problems healing from your 3rd degree tear.
Yeah, no, it was they sent me to a postpartum physio as well, and she said that the healing was great. So I thought it was very good that they did that as well, to see the physio. That was just a great extra bit of support to have.
Absolutely. I think it's something that comes with, I think for 3rd, 4th degree tears, that you get recommended, referred on to a woman's physio, which is really good.
I think everybody should have it, really, regardless of tear or not. I think it's a great resource to have. And
definitely.
Just that different kind of support that you don't usually get unless you seek it out. And I think a lot of women, I didn't really even know it was a thing until I needed it. So, but I think it would be very positive for everybody to have.
And how did you feel from this postpartum to your last postpartum, like C-section healing versus vaginal birth healing? How was the comparison between the two for you?
I remember being afraid to, it was a similar timing, I guess, as in birthing, I was sort of stitched up at midnight and into recovery, and then to have my C-section at midnight as well. So I sort of could compare the two the next day. And I was kind of nervous this time to get up because I expected it to be the same as my C-section. And when I got up, I was pleasantly surprised that I could walk quite easily, and I could sort of shower myself quite easily, and it just didn't feel as difficult or painful or slow. The healing was quite fast, and it was quite a big tear, but it was, the healing was still better than a C-section for me anyway.
That's good. And are you still breastfeeding a little one now? How old is she? 7 months old now?
She's 18 months now.
Oh, it was last year, was it?
Yeah, last year, yeah. Yeah, she's 18 months, so yeah, she's still feeding.
Well done.
Yeah, the postpartum with Elodie was a bit difficult because my husband went back to fly in, fly out work when she was 10 days old, and my mum flew back to Queensland when she was just over 2 weeks old. So it was actually amazing to have Narafia there coming to me, and she's also a masseuse, so I got my postpartum massages. Nice. And yeah, it was great. So yeah, that was really, really helpful for me because I did feel a bit more low in this postpartum than I did with James. So, and I didn't have as good a support group as I did with James because we hadn't been in Perth that long. So with that in mind, we decided to move back to Queensland where family was when Elodie was about 6 months old, just so I could have a bit more support from family and friends close by, and that has made a massive difference. Good. I also saw a psychologist postpartum because I really felt I needed a bit of extra support. And that was fantastic. I had an amazing psychologist. So I also think that most, well, not just mums, but everybody should have a psychologist. It's so helpful.
Like a coach behind you, someone to talk to and cheer on. Yeah,
definitely. Someone unbiased who can, you can talk things through, and they understand how people's minds work, I guess. So a bit more. So it's definitely, it was a massive help for me. I went from feeling within like 3 sessions, I went from just feeling incredibly low to back to my normal self. And that was just the best.
That's good.
Yeah.
Do you have any tips for, pregnant women, pregnant ladies, or women thinking about having a home birth after a C-section that you would like to share with anyone?
I think support is the most important thing. Someone who trusts women's bodies and trusts their ability to birth. And I just think being informed, because obviously every doctor and midwife, they have their own biases and their own experience. So I think being informed and confident in your ability as much as possible is really important, and having people who are also informed and confident in you is just amazing.
Beautiful advice. That's pretty much the advice I give and totally believe in, of course. So thank you so much for jumping on, Emma, and sharing your stories.
Thank you for having me.
Lovely getting a little teary again, listening to your birthing story and hearing how you felt.
Yeah, I'm so excited for you.
Thank you so much for sharing your story and coming on today.
Thank you for having me.
Hey, me again. I just wanted to let you know that I've just created a brand new Facebook group called VBAC Homebirth Support Group, where you can connect with other like-minded mothers who are looking to have a VBAC homebirth as well. You can find the link in the show notes, and I look forward to seeing you there. Thank you so much for listening to the VBAC Homebirth Stories podcast. I hope that this episode has helped you take another step to finding your voice and confidence in your VBAC journey. If you enjoyed the episode, please take a second to rate and review. Each review helps us to help more women to find out more about VBAC homebirth, just like you. Don't forget to take a screenshot, share it to your Instagram stories, and tag me at the Motherhood Circle. See you next week.